everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations. And today we're going to have a very awesome conversation about passion. And for those of you who have never watched my shows, maybe Kira Day is new to you, but she's been around on my LinkedIn Live. So you should check out some of those past recordings if you haven't before. But I have my lovely friend Kira Day here with me today to talk about passion, and not what all of us might have been taught passion is, or what passion is commonly referred to, maybe here on LinkedIn. We've got a really awesome conversation for you today about what passion is, what passion isn't, and why believing what passion is that it isn't stops you from having passion. Did that make sense? Something like that. So before we get kicked off today, couple of things. So for those of you who are joining us live today, please, we would love for you to get in the conversation. So if you have thoughts, insights, questions, post them in the chat and we will bring them into the conversation. We really want to hear your voice as part of the conversation today too, because passion looks a little bit different for everybody. And we want to include that as part of the conversation today. And for those of you who don't know Kira Day, Kira, can you please give us a little intro to you and why you're so passionate about passion?
Yes, I can. So first of all, Tracy, thanks for having me again. Nice to see everybody. So my name is Kira. I run a company called the Passion Center, which is an organization that's committed to helping us understand what passion is all about and how to individually start the journey of connecting and reconnecting to yours. The reason I'm so passionate about passion, honestly, is because for over 2 decades, I really struggled with understanding what it was, how it impacted me. I came from really humble beginnings, so a lot of my corporate focus was around the monetary gain and was around securing a good job, moving up the ladder, just all the stuff, right? All the things. And I confused my passion with so many other intrinsic drivers that it got me into a lot of trouble. Eventually, as the story goes, my body broke twice. And on the second time, it helped me to really reevaluate what I was doing, really reevaluate the systems I was in, who I was, the whole thing. So that led me to a breakdown and build up. And on the other end of that, passion was the thing that stood out for me. I think passion was actually the thing that saved me in a lot of ways. So I'm really passionate about getting the message out, clearing up the mud. I think passion's been given a bad rap in a lot of areas. So yeah, I'm just here to have, again, Tracy mentioned it, right? A conversation about how we can change the way we think about a very important feature in our human design.
I think this is really interesting, even like starting from there, right? It's an important feature of our human design. Mm-hmm. And it is that, and there's a whole bunch of things that it's not, that I think is a kind of a limiting factor for people actually finding passion, right? So, okay, that's one of the things it is, but what are the things that you commonly see, Kira, that people think passion is, that it isn't, that stops them from getting access to more passion in life, in work, wherever?
That is such a loaded question because it requires an understanding of what internally drives us as humans. And we muddy the waters a lot because passion, not only is it a subjective experience, but it's also kind of been touted as the holy grail of human experience. But we witness it through other people experiencing it and make a lot of assumptions about what it is. So that muddies the water in terms of how we can get clear about what these intrinsic drivers are. So some of the common things that passion is confused with are things like obsession, addiction. We also confuse it with ambition. A lot of the shun words passion is confused with. And they all have its own merit. We all have different relationships with it, but they all provide radically different outcome. So whereas passion, and I can get into the definition of what it is a little bit later, but when we start looking at things like obsession, addiction, and ambition, there's always this extrinsic quality or a deep pain that's driving both of those experiences. And it doesn't help us to live a quality of life that's in harmony with other areas of life. So when we find ourselves feeling an imbalanced need to always be with something or engaging with something, that's actually not very healthy. But that's what a lot of people assume is passion. And that's what people actually want from passion. So it gets really intriguing for me when I dive into these conversations because everybody's relationship with these things are different. But yeah, so I would say, oh yeah, and the other thing too is passion is not anger. A lot of people, who are angry say things like, oh well, I'm just passionate. Well, no, you're not passionate, you're angry. But it is coming from a place of deeply caring about something. So being able to have the correct language for what we're experiencing, how we're feeling, just helps us do better in our conversation. It helps us do better with ourselves. It helps us have better expectations and results. So yeah, those are the things that I would say passion isn't.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard you reference this a lot, that having language to put to some of these things, because when I think a lot of us, or this was me before I met you, was that I thought about it as kind of an obscure concept,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it was really hard to find anything that was definite because it was by definition to me an obscure concept. And so this is one of the things I love about Kira, you guys, is she makes all of this so real, and there's a lot of neuroscience and everything that is back behind the conversations had at the Passion Center. But one of the things I want to talk about before we move on to what passion is, because I think something that I've experienced too is that when I was growing up, I was like, I'm passionate about basketball.
Yep.
And so it was very much about the thing. It was about me being able to participate in a thing. And I know for a lot of athletes and for a lot of people who are maybe like in a job transition, a career transition to something different, there's a lot of your identity that you attach to the thing. But I mean, I went through your Unblocked program, highly recommend it to anybody who might be looking for some more information about their own passion. But for me, it was not actually related to the sport of basketball
Mm-hmm.
at all. So, can you talk to us a little bit about the misconception of passion as a thing versus what passion might be instead? And that can lead us into what passion is.
Absolutely. So it's so hard to define these things without first saying what passion is. However, when we think about passion, we think about the thing because of our language, right? So when we say something like we're passionate about basketball, because basketball is the thing that we're passionate about, our focus goes to basketball. But it actually has nothing to do with basketball. It's what basketball gives us. So internally, we have drivers, and there are specifically passion drivers that we have all internally. And so let's use the case in point of basketball. If I have 5 basketball players that I'm working with, they can all be passionate about basketball, but the reasons for why they're passionate about basketball are going to be different and unique to each person. So my job is to understand and unpack what is it that creates the excitement that they achieve for basketball. So for one person, an experience when they were younger with family and just having a really good belonging experience could neural link their fascination, curiosity, or connection to basketball. For another person, it could be, I don't know, maybe they were bullied growing up, and when they got onto the court and they were able to express themselves in a way that projected talent, in a way that made other people see them for the first time, maybe that could be an experience or a driver for them to build that relationship with basketball. And again, the other 3 people could have very different experiences that when you understand the combination, their own unique passion formula, you get an understanding of what's driving that emotion. So passion's the output. What I'm here to do is understand what the inputs are for each person uniquely. So the same way, when I work with people who don't have clarity on their passion at all, I use the same formula. It's just about identifying what is intrinsic, what is internal to them, and aligning them or having them have some clarity and understanding around that, then we can apply it to a whole list of other things. And that's another thing. Once we know this, we become empowered people. It's not just about one thing anymore. We can get the same feeling from so many other things. So we have all of these opportunities available to us to turn on our internal light switch. We just need to find where that switch is. And that, I think, is what society is struggling with, because there's not enough platforms in our education systems, in our organizations, to really do the internal discovery work to get an understanding of this baseline. That's actually why I was so inspired to get the system down and to build out the Passion Center, because I think once you understand, your world changes and your results change, and you just become more empowered in the decisions that you make, knowing what's noise versus what's for you. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, there's so much noise.
So much noise. Yeah.
And some noise is louder than other noise. And that really loud noise still might not be what's right for you. And so being able to have that clarity of what is right for you, it's just it's the thing that's really empowering, and being able to let go of things that are not for you and kind of turn off or turn down the noise, and be able to turn up what is important. And I really love this concept too, because I'm just thinking about, I'm using basketball because this is my example, right? You guys know I love to use myself as an example. This is what I do here. But I, like, when I was playing basketball, I was so passionate about playing basketball, and I had no concept of the reasons why. And I can still use that experience now to see, like, oh, I've realized this is my pain, and this is some of the passion that's come from pain. And no wonder I loved basketball, because it satisfied so many of my passion drivers.
Mhm.
And now I have like the Your Business Peeps community, and it satisfies the same passion drivers, but
Cool.
in like two very different ways. And
Mhm.
so it's really cool to start to see the overlap in where those passion drivers exist, because like you said, Kira, it is more available than we give it credit for.
It is, yes, 1,000%. And I don't know that we can totally blame um, people for not knowing these things either. They're not entirely intuitive. Our brains aren't designed, for the most part, to be able to go through the process of understanding our internal drivers. We just don't have enough experience with it. Um, that's why, for me, it's like self education is the best type of education, because once you get that level of self awareness down, you can become a better advocate for yourself through the journey of life. And you can find things and make better decisions that align to your thrive centers than these other areas that can really drain you of your energy, drain you of your vitality, and really cause a lot of muck psychologically and emotionally, whether that's through not aligning yourself to the right partner in life, not aligning yourself to the right career in life, not aligning yourself to the right role or position in life. And we do this to ourselves because we're missing information, you know? But once you have access to that information, I don't know, for me at least, I understand now that there is so much more opportunity for me to feel good about things versus any other type of feeling, right?
Yeah. And I think I love the phrase you used of about thrive centers, right? I
It's
think this is just really, I'm thinking about lots of bees. But like historically, if someone asked me, what is my thrive center? Where are some places, some experiences, some people, some
yeah.
feelings where I really feel like I thrive? And there would have totally been a time in my life where I was like, I don't even know how to answer that question, right? Like, not that I haven't been in places where I feel like I thrive, but it's just, again, the language and the how often it's part of the conversation is quite honestly why we're bringing this conversation to you guys today, because neither of us thinks that it's in the conversation enough. So we're talking about it. And just a reminder to you guys, if you have questions or your thoughts or your experience with passion that you would love to share or have questions answered, please pop them in the chat. So Kira can answer those because she knows all the things about passion. Okay, so we kind of meandered into what passion is. Passion is an output. There's some passion drivers that go into input. So what else do you want us to know, or do you think we should know, Kira, about what passion is, so we can start to create our own language around that?
Yeah. So when you want, like you said earlier, passion can be one of those esoteric things that's very big, very heavy, and not reachable. So, in the journey of studying passion with thousands of people, I wanted to bring the language into a way that took it from 10,000 feet in the air right into ground level. So, if I were to create a formula for passion, my formula for passion would be passion equals meaning times investment. So, it's doing the things that are meaningful to you and understanding what is meaningful to you. Those are your passion drivers, right? That gets you to your passion center, hence the term, the passion center. And so once you understand what your passion center is, through identifying the things that are meaningful to you, that's when life becomes a playground. The challenge is to get to the things that are meaningful to you means you have to cross a lot of bridges. So it's not just about your pleasure center, it's also about your pain centers. Because pain and pleasure function in similar parts of the brain and can activate certain types of experiences that model passion. However, if it's coming from a point of pain, you more likely will have an imbalance in your passion that causes you to be on the overactive side of the spectrum, which can create a lot of psychological disturbances, right? So Dr. Robert Vallerand, who's a social psychologist out of Montreal, has created a lot of papers on passion, and he came up with the dual model for passion. So there's obsessive and there's harmonious. The passion center deals with helping people to achieve the harmonious setting of passion. But that cannot be found if we don't first explore pain, which, a lot of people are surprised by when they work with me, because it's like, I thought I was here to have the good feels. Why are you making me look at the bad things? But in order to have the good feels, a really great catalyst for that is to really confront the dark things. And I think that that's something that us as humans in our society need to get a lot better at, because I do feel like we're in a time period where there's a lot of toxic positivity around. We neglect a lot of our negative things in favor for our positive things. But when we do that, we deny access to parts of ourself that needs expression in order for us to feel passion. Because passion is a lot about how we're expressing ourselves authentically. And we can't get to that place without looking at all of the other inner things. So when I think of passion, or again, bringing it back to the simplicity of it, we need to understand that it is and is circulated around meaning. So finding your meaning is a surefire way of getting to your passion. Now, the other thing that I want to mention about getting to your meaning, it's about changing the conversation that you're having with yourself. And sometimes we have this conversation that says that I cannot be happy until X happens. And so X is always this thing that's outside that's controlling the way that you're perceiving, you're interpreting, and you're experiencing. So if we can change that conversation that we're having with ourselves, then that becomes a surefire way to hijack our senses of meaning so that we can, again, have more expression in the things that we do, which generates higher levels of passion health, I guess.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that all of this is very internal.
About it is internal, yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people who go out and try and find passion, right? Like, I'm going to find it. I'm looking at it from an external perspective. And I've heard you say this before. Passion is not found, it is activated. And so this is what we're looking at today, are passion drivers, things that create meaning for you that can be turned into something else. There's a really great comment here from Parham. From the career side, if we choose passion, we may lose our interest in the job over heavy pressure or bad management. And I mean, heavy pressure and bad management is probably going to cause a lot of people to lose their jobs anyway. Yeah. But because I'm sure you've seen this with your clients too, Kira, in terms of people who are in a work environment and they've decided to invest in learning more about their passion and what their passion drivers are.
Mhm.
How is there a way for us to kind of create harmony between that and our job, or sometimes are we just going to be like, yeah, you're in the wrong place?
Everything about passion is nuanced, right? So, like I say, passion is simple, you're not. So, a lot of our structures that we make around ourselves. So when we're taking a look at careers and modeling what we're passionate about, some people are scared to marry their passion with their career because for them, they feel like they will lose the passion for the thing because other things will contaminate it, like maybe the financial side, or like you had just pointed out, bad management or toxic cultures. Here's the thing that we got to know about passion. Passion is completely about you. However, it's about how you marry yourself to your external world. And everything has influence on everything else. So, when I had conducted the Passion Health study, which involved about 1,300 people, what we found out was that passion was about 15 things that need to be in harmony with each other in order for us to feel that sense of thrive. Those 15 things could be distilled down into 4 areas. So, when it comes to corporate life, it's about how well is that corporate life assisting you with your psychological needs or your psychological health? How is it helping you? Oh, I think you just lost me. Um, I can't hear you.
I'm on mute. See,
Oh,
all the tech. I'm telling you, there's like some tech spooks in the ethers today. We heard number one, number two.
oh, sorry. So number one was about your psychological needs. How are they being addressed? Number two, it's about your internal needs. So do you know enough about your internal needs in order to be expressing them in what you do? Number three, it's about your external environment and how that's supporting you to be able to express yourself. And number four, it's your social needs, which are all based on trust-based communities. If you're not in a place that can help you to express those internal things that need expression and that assists you with your psychological needs, it all of it kills passion, all of it, right? So yes, it is about being able to blend and work within an environment that assists with, but like even as I'm talking through this, even as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, but why would you want to be in a place to begin with that has bad management or any of those things, right? Like, forget passion, yourself suffers in that environment. So, whether you're just doing it for the money or you're doing it because that's the position that you're in right now that's creating safety, um, it's not healthy. And I think that's the conversation that takes precedence over whether you should insert passion or not insert passion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because it also makes me think about like work is one environment in which we exist, right? And granted, we spend a lot of our hours in a day in a work environment if you're working a
Right.
9 to 5.
Right. Or more. Most people work more than 9 to 5.
Yeah, that's true. I always give my husband high five because he managed. He's like, "This is how much they pay me to work, and that's how much I'm going to work." I was not good at that. We can all learn from him, you guys.
Right.
But there's again, like I think one of the biggest like challenges I see in that is that when we don't understand our internal drivers, we can't actually even go looking for them. So
Mhm.
yes, there's heavy pressure and bad management. This sounds not like a great place to be in Parham's example. But for me, I worked in an environment where I created most of that boundary, right? I
Mhm.
didn't have to. I created it because I didn't know what my internal drivers were. So I couldn't even look to find them in
Right.
my corporate work. And like, I've discovered them now since I left that work environment, but I like sometimes I wonder like, oh, how this could have been so different in the work environment because now I know more about myself instead of just doing by default what everybody else is and then feeling frustrated or angry or whatever and
Mhm.
being I'm one of those anger passion people, right? Who are like, I'm just passionate about accountability.
Right.
Like,
Right.
no, I'm angry that
Yeah.
people aren't meeting my accountability need.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I put a different level of meaning on it than other people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Mm.
And here's the thing, right? Like, by and large, the corporate standards of today are not conducive to what people need to thrive. We are in a little bit of an influx because it is created by and large to meet one objective and one objective only, which is the financial health of an organization. So until there's a mindset shift, which we don't have control over right now within organizations, that allows them an opportunity to balance the balance both needs, the financial and the person's ability to thrive, there is going to be an inherent conflict that goes on and that happens. At this stage in the game, it is up to the individual to accept that condition, right? So, which is a hard one to accept. For me, I chose to not accept it. But I didn't actually choose to not accept it here. My body decided that it wasn't going to accept it anymore. So I needed to do right by my body and change the situation, change the narrative, which is what I'm doing right now. But it's not, it's, I consider that a luxury. Not a lot of people can change their situation, but that should not mean that that stops you from exploring the things that feeds you outside of the office. So getting in touch with your passion drivers doesn't always have to line up to what you're doing for work, but it does need to line up to how you choose to live your life outside of work. Because if you keep putting yourself in situations that drain you endlessly, that's never going to leave you in a good place psychologically, biologically. These things have been proven, they're science, these are facts. So, in order to protect your body and your mental health and all of the things, you need to discover your own things and your own ways to feed and nourish your soul so that you can have the energy to keep that kind of stamina going when you are in a high pressure, toxic management type of situation.
I think this is a great time for Tim's comment here about leadership, because I think often leaders kind of get caught in the middle of this, because leaders are still people too.
Yes.
And they are now responsible for making sure that the financial goals of this organization are met. And so Tim is saying, when applied to leadership, 6% of the population wants the responsibility of leading others. It's a pretty small percentage, right? 85% of those leaders say their job makes their life tougher.
Yep.
And repeatedly, I hear they wouldn't stop. So making the pain productive is so important. But something I also read into that, and I'd love to hear your interpretation of this, Kira, too, is that it's almost like the pain in this scenario actually has like a passion driver associated with it, right? Like the reason why you keep choosing that is because it has a passion driver. What are your thoughts?
So it's exactly like what we were discussing before. Passion is not only about pleasure, passion is also about pain. And the reason for that is that pain in certain ways makes our life meaningful. And the pressure that's associated with it, there is an addictive quality in our brains that keeps us wanting to drive that forward. And this is very nuanced, right? So everyone, it's like parenting, right? For any of the parents in the room, like having children are painful. It's a painful experience, right? It's not all butterflies and rainbows, and sure, it's rewarding, but those little guys, they give you a lot of pain in the process. But when you ask parents if they would, choose a better life and get rid of their kid, 9 times out of 10, they would choose their child, 1,000% of the time, and the experience of being a parent. And so, like I had mentioned before, neurochemically, pain and pleasure run on different highways in the same region of the brain. So it interacts with certain types of chemical producers that helps the experience of passion to exist. So passion chemically is seen as norepinephrine and dopamine. So we all know that addictive nature of dopamine because, That's what marketers use to keep us in the game and keep us moving. Well, pain produces the same type of connection. So, so again, there is a meaning ability there, whatever it is that that person's getting. And the more intense that person's, I would say, connection to having that leadership role and getting pleasure from that pain, it's connected back historically and usually to a point in their life where they've had to overcome a certain type of pain that matches the same thing that's feeding their ability to almost like regenerate more of that production supply inside of them. I mean, we're getting a little bit more scientific and more complex now, but leave it to say that yes, passion has more to do with pain than it has to do with pleasure, and our brains have a way of mixing it up sometimes to give you deeper feelings of commitment and responsibility to the cause that you are experiencing passion in.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting for me to. I'm thinking about some of the pain experiences I would have labeled as pain when
Yes.
I was in leadership, and knowing what I know now about my passion drivers, it's like very clear why I kept going back for more.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So it's really interesting because I even like Tim used the like air quotes pain.
Yeah.
Like we call it pain, but like really if I was going to walk out the door and every time I walked out the door I got punched in the arm, I could be like, oh, I'm going to walk out another door because I don't have a passion driver
Right.
attached to that kind of pain.
Yeah.
It's why I'm now retired from basketball, because I don't have a passion driver related to injuries from
You're right. There you go.
but it's just really interesting, and this is where I think it's so fun and to get exploring, you guys, is think about, like, for all of you right now, think about a thing that's either causing you pain today,
Yes.
or that causes you pain on a recurring basis, and like start to look at that. Why do I keep going back for more of this? There's something that
That's really
you,
yeah.
yeah, that you get, that it might be connection, it might be something that has no words associated with it yet, but that's probably why.
Yeah.
And that's why being in the conversation on an ongoing basis in these types of arenas is so
Yes.
powerful, because you learn. This is why I have Kira back for multiple times on my show, because every time I learn something different.
But I do want to make something clear. Like, remember when I said there's healthy passion and there's not healthy passion? When too much of our needs are being met through a point of pain, it's an indicator that something is unhealed, and it can actually create an overdrive in an individual. Overdrives isn't a good thing. We respect it a lot in society because overdrive leads to good work ethic, leads to working longer hours, leads to extra commitment, leads to blah, blah, blah. A lot more effort out of the employee or the leader. But it is, and we should all know this, it's not healthy, right? So we do need to also learn to have passion boundaries and understanding why you're so passionately addicted to something, or passionately obsessive about something is a really good first step to starting to harmonize and get your passion into better balance. Passion balance is an important part of the conversation that we do not talk about, but it is hyper important if you want to live a long life and if you want to have a lot of energy to support the other areas in your life that needs attention, like your relationships, your health, your diet, all the other stuff that's equally important. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I do feel as though that's something that we all need to think about a little bit more than we do today.
Yeah, I think that especially true, because what I don't want people to be like, oh, I feel a lot of pain, so I must have a lot of passion in my life. Okay, I'm good. Check the box. Right? Like, but this is, in my experience, through exploring pain, we can find insight into our passion drivers, and then we can find healthier ways to have those passion drivers met than
Yes.
through constantly experiencing pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a way to do that neurologically. You can't actually do this on your own without learning how your neurology works, because it's about resetting something that has been set to a certain, let's call it a temperature. And if it's set to a temperature that causes you to obsessively go in a certain direction, you can't just stop that train without the proper training. You need to be able to train yourself to get back into balance, and you need guides that understand how this works, to support you in that endeavor.
Mhm. And this is what passion-based experts do, you guys. This is what the Passion Center is built all around, is being able to have those types of leaders lead you in the conversation. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I have been led through that conversation. And so
Mhm.
just to quickly, I just want to share quickly my experience in the Unblocked program for those of you who haven't really heard about it. It's a 7-week program. And sometimes I am shocked by the amount more I know about myself after 7 weeks when you have that like really highly targeted coaching in look at this, look at this, look at this. And none of it, although it's all like very science based, and I will tell you, Kira, sometimes I was like, this science is just like kind of just going right over my head. But the activities that come out of it, because they're science based, they're easy to understand. They're easy to do. I mean, they're conceptually easy to do. Some of them are associated with pain. It's not always the easiest to just go deep and explore all your pain. But it's not like it's, I don't know. It's weird because I feel like it's so easy, but at the same time, you have to go really deep. So going deep is hard,
It's
but
challenging.
it's
Mhm.
just this like so well curated your path. Um, it's like if if you were gonna show up at this like really crazy jungle forest and people are like, "Don't worry, your passion is in there. Just go, you'll find it, right?" And you'd be like, maybe I'm good. I'm good. I might find way more pain in there
Right.
than I find out here. So I'm good. But when you're like, oh, I am your Sherpa and I've already carved this path for you. And this is how, and some, I might be confusing some of you being like, Tracy, you always say don't like follow someone else's path. But the interesting thing about this path is it's just like a path for you to build your path on.
It's a structure, right?
Yeah.
So what we've created, and I made.
We lost you again.
Are we there? Better?
You're back.
So yeah, I made this way on purpose because when I was going through my health journey, one of the most frustrating things, that I did, and I understand that I needed to move through this. This was my path, but I had to put a lot of trust in other people's processes without actually seeing the process. And some of those worked, some of them didn't. And so on the other side of this, when I was building out these programs, I said it needs to be flexible enough for the individual to find themselves in it, but it needs to be structured enough so people know what they're going to be achieving and accomplishing every step of the way. Because without your brain, like going to your pain is already a painful process, and your brain's going to do a whole bunch of stuff to not want you to look at it. It's already a scary process, and it's already scary to trust. Without a structure, your brain's like, I'm out. With a structure, your brain feels safe. And when your brain feels safe, it's ready to do the work. And so that's really the balance of what these programs allow. It allows you to feel safe enough to know that you're going somewhere, you're being led somewhere in a structured way, but individualized and personalized so that you don't get left out of the structure. Because passion is personal, right? So it needs to be highly curated so that your experience is your experience, even though the structure is the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think it's one of the most beautiful things to allow someone an opportunity to see themselves. So I say it all the time. The passion-based experts inside of the Passion Center, we're not coaches per se. Sure, we have licenses and all that kind of stuff, but we are a flashlight and a mirror. That's it. To give you an opportunity to look at yourself in new ways, in maybe more accurate ways, and to lose some of the biases that might be getting in your way from experiencing more passion in your life. So if that's what you're looking for, I feel as though this is probably one of the best made products on the market today to get you to explore that journey and get out on the other side with something, with an achievement at the other end. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say too, because I was in it's a group program. And so what you also get to see is other people's journeys. And it is really interesting to see, even on a week to week basis, like, huh, we all did the same things, but this person saw this about themselves and that person saw that about themselves. And like some people got stuck in different places, right? And it's just like it's just a beautiful way to explore yourself on a structured path with others on the journey with you. I could talk about that for a very long time. But I just wanted you guys to understand that the passion conversation, this is something I'm really passionate about because we've been having a lot of these get curious about passion conversations.
Yeah.
And if you guys have a community or you're interested in, or there's a community you participate in where you think like having a conversation about passion would be useful, please reach out to me or Kira. We've been facilitating these get curious about passion conversations. And it's just not a thing that you can like come to one conversation and then be like, okay, I got it, I'm good. Because there's just like you've heard us talk about, there's layers and layers and layers of these things. You can't even get to an underlying layer until you've peeled the top layer off. And it just doesn't happen in one conversation, but it does start with one conversation. And so I really want to celebrate all of you coming and participating in the conversation here with us today, because I feel like everybody has more room for passion in their lives. But if right now you're in a place where you're just like, dude, I want more of that, like stay in the conversation, reach out to me, let's talk about it, reach out to Kira, and she would love to talk about it, right? Like you can tell, we could be here for a very long time. But just if this is something that gave you joy today and made you feel like you have more access to passion, please don't let this be the last conversation you have about passion. Yeah. It would make both Kira and I very sad.
Very sad. And I think this is the one thing. I've been talking about passion now for almost 5 years. And it doesn't get boring because there's so, like Tracy said, there's so many layers. And when you understand the richness of this, it sparks new insights within yourself that you can apply to your real world situations, whether that's your family, whether that's an external thing that you're looking for outside of your 9 to 5, or whether that's inside of your 9 to 5. I think we can all agree no one's here on earth to be like, I want to have a shitty life. I don't want to experience passion. Like no one said that ever. So, so I think if you're looking for more access to have the joy feels and to just be in a community of people, then we do have pathways to that. The Get Curious About Passion conversation is definitely one. It's free. And it's a place where you can have your own passions explored by asking the questions that are deeply meaningful to you in a personalized, safe space. The second one is a masterclass we do twice a month. And that masterclass gives you the education, but also the experiential work so that you get to explore in a safe space as well. And then the third one is obviously the programs. But if you're not ready for the programs, you're not ready for the programs, right? But don't allow that to stop you from starting the journey, because you may be very surprised what you find along the path. Even the most self-aware people come out of these classes learning things, because yourself is like a universe. It is rich with things. And the moment you say that you've known enough about yourself, well, I'm sorry. Like that's a sad life. I want to keep learning about myself because I'm a rich field waiting to be explored of different things. And I get to express myself in all of these different ways so that my life keeps getting better, better, and better. I want that for myself. And because I want that for myself, I want that for you guys too.
Yeah. And this is why Kira's here with us today, because I want it for you guys as well. I would say I would put myself into that category of a person who does a lot of personal, professional development, right? Mm-hmm. And when I found out about this program, I'm like, that's a path that I've never explored. So there's got to be something different for me to learn down that path. And
Mhm.
boy, was there. So many things. It just is amazing. And this is the thing too about conversation, right? Like every time Kira and I talk, like if you guys really want to, there are 2 other episodes you can go back and listen, because there's a lot of things that are the same, but there's a lot of things that are different. And because this is such a deep and robust topic, like literally we could probably sit here and talk for 8 hours and not duplicate too
Oh,
much information.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's just like, I don't know. And you know what? If you didn't have fun in this conversation today, well, all I'm going to say is find the conversations where you do have fun.
yeah.
Because when you do, that's a secret insight into your passion drivers.
Yep.
So you can take that away as a to do. And one of the things I wanted to just, I'm interested to see how you will address this, Kira, because Tim asked a question about hijacking passion. Can you give us a story of how a client hijacked passion to make it healthy?
So, okay, so I think in terms of how this question needs to be restructured to apply to what we do, if I have a person that is obsessively passionate within what they do, then I automatically know that there is an imbalance. So when I work through their imbalance, it's really about moving back into their pain. This is going to get really complex, but I can share it with you. It's about moving back in their pain. So whatever painful event that they've explored, and it's an exploration process, highly nuanced, everyone's different. If you want something to do for yourself, this is a very, very high level. I mean, I have a 7-week program that I take people through, so it's intense. But high level, I'm going to walk you through this. So the first thing is you're going to want to identify a painful event. Any painful event will do. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever comes up for you first, we can always explore deeper from there. You're not going to feel good about it, obviously, because we're moving through your pain. But at first, you're going to identify your painful event. With that painful event, you're going to look at it from a couple of different ways. So number one, why was it significant to you? So why was it meaningful? Number two, how did it change the way you saw either yourself or the world around you? Usually this comes out with an I statement. So I statements can sound very much like, I felt, what came up last night, actually? We had some really good ones that came up last night. So it could be things like, I'm invisible, or I'm not important enough to feel heard, or it's like everybody has their own unique ones, right? So we call them negative belief constructs. Then we move into, well, how did that shape the way that you've behaved or what you've perceived in your life to cause other events? We move through that structure. And then at the end of the journey, we're looking for the opportunity. So what happens when pain is removed from that event? How does that change the way you see the world? And usually 9 times out of 10, that changes their perception into something a lot more positive. But it's not good enough that you look for the opposite. It has to be something that's triggering for you in order for it to be the perfect match. We're looking for a matching scenario so that your neurology can actually shape. When you find your matching scenario and you see the opportunity, you can reshape the event by taking the pain out of it, restructuring it just a tiny bit so that you can see how your negative belief construct would have changed and that would shift. When you're able to see the opportunity and your balance within the opportunity, you balance your pain. When you balance your pain, you balance the obsession. But it's not something that happens overnight. This is why it's really important to understand the process so that you can reset your neurology. When you reset your neurology, you're able to then perceive things differently, which allows you to react differently, which allows you to get different results. If you're seeing the same thing continuously and it's shaping your reality in a certain way, you're going to get specific results, right? So again, this is layers and layers deeper than I thought this conversation would go, but thank you for asking the question. That's just one of the tools that we use to help people to reset. and allow them a safe space to recalibrate their engineering so that the obsession comes more into an harmonious range and their relationship with their passion actually improves. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you understood that.
Yeah. I've been through the process, so
about it than it is to actually walk someone through it. Like,
well, and you know what's interesting to me is I'm thinking about the original question, hijack passion, right? And then I'm thinking about hijacking a car. And specifically, I'm thinking about the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, right?
yeah.
It's not like they were like, boom, hijack a car, I'm good. Right? Like there's weeks of planning and key copying and teams and codes and all the things, right? Like I think a lot of times we and this is pretty common in like the digital landscape is that everything is so easy. Things are fast, things get done, just like
Yep.
everything's
Instagram.
automated. Yeah. And the journey through passion just isn't that.
No, it's not. And I don't want to fool anybody and say that it's not. Actually, I wouldn't disrespect passion in that way. Passion is to be respected because passion is more you than it is passion, right? And you need to be respected. And the only way you can respect yourself is by learning about yourself. And in this day and age, we know more about our things than we know about ourselves. But when you start to understand your own mechanics, you will appreciate the process a lot more. When you don't understand your own mechanics, we make a lot of assumptions about how things work, which gets us into a lot more trouble than we need to get into. So my job is to help you understand you. When you understand you, all of this stuff makes sense. And you have the tools that not only you learn in the 7 weeks that we're together, but that could be applied way moving forward. Actually, there's an exercise that I make people do for 90 days after we leave together, because that's how long it's going to take to really do some good work inside of the neurology.
Yeah. And it's like new patterns, right? New habits, right? All of these things. And even those things don't come all together in 7 weeks, right? Like we learn new things that we want to create a habit around, and then we still have to go and create habits and surround ourselves with people and conversation that allow us to stay accountable to those things. Because, like I said, there's probably not a lot. If all of you kind of like looked at your immediate family or close friends or anything like that, how many of them are talking about passion like this? I mean, for me, it's zero. Well, I'm friends with Kira, so it's one. I hang out with Kira a lot, but that's because I like having this part of my conversation all the time. It has a positive impact on my life. And so getting those things set up for yourself that allow you to stay part of the conversation is a critical component. So today, step 1, come and hang out with us some more. If you guys don't follow Kira, because there may or may not be something coming soon that will help you stay in the conversation on a weekly basis. Maybe. So follow Kira for more information on that, and follow Kira anyway for all of the information on passion.
And just so we're aware, right? Like passion is an emotional state, and our emotions are part of the conversation. And so historically, we've been a culture that has over glorified the brain region, right? And our logic and our intellect, and those things are massively important. But emotions are very sophisticated. And so they do not work the same way as our logical mind feels that it should. But just because it doesn't mean it's not sophisticated. So being in the conversation is about also getting insights and access to understanding your own emotional realities, which is essential if you want to experience more passion. So I don't know. I enjoy this, obviously. So I'm going to be here. And I just hope to see you all again.
Yeah. And you guys know me at this point. I have Kira back once a quarter. So you guys just let me know you want her back again, and we'll get her on the calendar, because legitimately, We can't talk too much about passion. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining us today and getting in the conversation about passion. So proud of all you guys. Hope to see you back again for another passion conversation soon. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you.